Good morning, council members. Susan Estes with Americans for Prosperity, 151 South Whittier in Wichita. I'm actually have an unusual request for you. I'm going to ask that you please consider tabling this for 1 week. And the reason that I'm making this request is I think we don't have all the information that we'd like to have. One of our members has asked the city for information about this project and never got a response. And I don't think it was through any conspiracy to delay things. I think it's just a function of the process and indicates a different issue. You guys released the agenda on Thursday. You send out the request Thursday night or Friday for follow-up information, and you sometimes staff can try, and I want to very carefully acknowledge that Van Williams tried to get the correct party to respond, and we never got a response. And I just think that if we have members of the public who aren't getting questions answered, that it doesn't seem urgent that we move forward on this. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Questions, Ms. Estes?
And my last request would be, let's take a look at that agenda process so that we don't run into this problem, because this is the second time in a short period that we've run into this problem. And if we have questions and we feel like we don't have enough time to read it, sometimes you may feel that way as well.
Councilman Meitzner?
Ms. Estes, so this agenda item was discussed at length last week, and it was on for the second public opinion this week. And you're saying that you made a request for information and we didn't give you information?
Not I personally, but Mr. Weeks did, and he asked for the gap analysis, and we've received no response. And sometimes we have to kind of wait until things are released on the agenda packet, because a lot of times that's when information that we might be looking for is released, or very often we're told, well, here's when this is, the agenda packet release is when things become public and out of their draft form.
So when this was first brought up last week, anybody could ask for information then, but we waited until the agenda was published Thursday afternoon, which I agree there could be some flaws there, but
absolutely, again, because very often we're told that things are in their draft form and not open to the public until that time. And then sometimes what we want is in there. So we try to balance not bugging what we anticipate getting.
So this was a facade easement. It's a special assessment. It's going to be paid by special assessments, right?
Okay.
That way I understand. We have various development areas that we have special assessments for roads and streets and whatever else. Is there gap analysis done on every time we do a special assessment item? Do we know? There's not. Is there a reason why this one should have a gap analysis and not the other ones?
Councilman Meitzner, I'd like to clarify that. For economic development projects, a gap analysis is done. For regular special assessment projects, for public streets, no, that's not a regular part of our process.
Okay. All right. Is there a problem supplying a gap analysis on this, or why don't we have it done?
I'd like to ask Alan to answer that question, please.
Council members, mayor and council members, we have that under legal review at this point in time. There are some legal issues involved with resolving that issue, so we haven't responded in that regard yet.
Yeah. Is this going to avoid? Is this going to avoid if we delay 1 week?
Well, it won't be. It would not be 1 week because unless there's new unfinished business on the workshop agenda. There's a workshop next week. There's no
new business, so it would be July 1 would be when it would come back.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Miller?
Yes, may I ask for further clarification from Mr. Dorff? Is the legal question whether or not a gap analysis is public information, or is the legal question about whether or not there's a problem with the way the gap analysis was conducted?
It has to do with whether or not the gap analysis is a document that is subject to the Open Records Act.
Okay. So you are in the process of determining whether or not that is a document that can be released under CORA, but believe that the gap analysis met all legal criteria for the council's and ordinances requirements of a gap analysis in consideration for this. Is that accurate?
The gap analysis is something required by the economic development policy. The concern is whether or not the information that's provided is proprietary information that is not subject to the Open Meetings Act or Open Records Act.
Okay. And the second part of my question is it your opinion that the gap analysis was conducted properly and has been considered properly in the staff's preparation for this agenda item?
At this point in time, I can't answer that because we just received the request to review this yesterday, and we haven't completed our review.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd just like to clarify, I could see a moment of an opportunity for miscommunication. We did not send the request yesterday. It was sent, or Mr. Weeks sent the request on Thursday evening.
Reverend Meitzner?
Just another question for you, Susan. So when the other communities, Derby, everybody else is doing a similar thing where they have a facade improvement, has there been requests, and do they provide gap analysis to you? Or have you ever requested one from anybody else?
We have not asked. I've not had members in those areas interested in that.
You asked on all the action that Topeka does. Have you asked for gap analysis on any of those?
Topeka's not in my territory.
Your knowledge, does your group ask from Topeka?
I couldn't give you a accurate answer on that. I would be speculating.
Like same. I guess you're saying the same thing about all the economic development that Kansas City does, the Kansas City area, in their border wars. Is there any requests for gap analysis information on those?
Again, I could not begin to answer that because I don't have the knowledge.
Be able to find out if your group
I'd be happy to.
ever asked for other areas outside of Wichita?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
No other questions.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item?
Lonnie Wright, 1721 South Lulu. There's no taxpayer money involved in this. The owner's paying everything. He can have, on a portion of the project, a little better interest, in spreading this out. This isn't taxpayer money. It's just another opportunity to try to get personal business information from the proprietors in order to attack them. This is just using this process that we've had to improve our downtown, our environment, in order to attack people. I heavily support CORA and COMA, but I don't see any reason for this to be delayed. This is not taxpayer money. Thank you.
There's someone else. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? Councilman Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. A point of clarification. My understanding is that this one does have a $20,000 grant as part of the project, and those are tax dollars. Okay. In my experience, the gap analysis and financial documentation provided in economic development work is not made available, and so my assumption is that legally, we're probably going to find out that that gap analysis is not subject to CORA, but rather than speculating, I have no problem with taking the time to go through that legal review, unless you can tell us, Alan, specifically that there's a very urgent need. I have not heard that there is to move this.
No, I don't think there is a urgent need, council member. This item actually will come back to the City Council next week on the consent agenda. By then, I'm sure the law department will have completed their legal analysis. The request came in. I was on vacation, and I did manage to forward the email or asked my staff to do that. They forwarded it to an attorney who was also on vacation. So that's why there was this delay until I got back in the office yesterday. We could have this item marked for separate consideration on the consent agenda next week and give you a brief report on the law department's determination. And if they have determined by then that it is public information, then we will certainly supply the information to Mr. Weeks by then as well. So that may be a possibility of leaving it on consent agenda for additional consideration on second reading.
Okay. That answer your question?
It does.
We still have public.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll wait.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this item? Seeing that there is no one, at this time we'll return to discussion. Back to the bench. Okay, Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to recommend that we just have the legal department complete its legal review to confirm that the gap analysis has been done properly and make a determination about whether or not that's the financial information provided in a gap analysis is public information. I have my own guess, as I said, but I have no problem asking the legal department to complete that review. I would point out that this is the reason that we have these items on multiple agendas, is to give people opportunity to ask in time. So right after the agenda was published, not for this week, but the prior week, that request could have been made then. So I would like to acknowledge that that's one of the reasons we established the setting of a public hearing in advance, is so that can be requested, and in this case could have been requested a week earlier. Presumably, we would have been able then to have this issue resolved. So do I need to make a motion to defer this until July 2nd, or until, if there is a procedural way to consider it? Well, we don't have public comment next week at the consent agenda, so do I need to make a motion?
Yes. There's two options here. You could request an exception to the workshop rules and allow this item to come back as a regular item for if there should be public comment on it or not, as an exception to the workshop agenda. Or you can just defer it to the July 1st meeting.
Are you ready for me to make a motion?
Are there any additional discussion? Okay. Yes.
Then I will take this opportunity to move that we defer this item to the, looks like it's July 2nd is my calendar, right?
July 1st.
Okay, my calendar up here is wrong then. Oh, yes it is. That says July 1st. I move that we defer this item to the July 1st council meeting.
Second.
You've heard the motion. It's been properly seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing that there are no questions, Madam Clerk, prepare a ballot. Cast your vote. Madam Clerk, display for the record. And motion passes 7-0. Please call the next item.